today we're doing more gardening. And you see how I do my gardening. I do it in these fabric pots. Now these are 100-gallon size fabric pots, and they hold about 3 great big bags of garden soil if you filled them all the way to the top. Now these have, when I started out with them 3 years ago, I put 2.5 bags in them, and it settled down some. I'd say there's probably 2 bags of garden soil in this particular fabric pot, and I've got the side folded down on it. Maybe you can see there where I've got the side folded down a little bit on this one, and you could raise them up higher and make them deeper if you wanted to. If you was planting taters or something like that and you wanted it higher, just plant your taters in something like this, and then as the taters start to grow, you put more dirt in there and just let the taters keep growing up, and they keep rooting and putting out taters down in there. But these are going to be used this year for tomatoes, and I always try to rotate my crops in my fabric pots. It's good for the soil to do that. This was really good soil that I bought at one of the big box stores, and hauled it in here in big bags and drug it in here. Poor old decrepit broken-legged girl that I am. And I've got, what is it, 30 of these fabric pots, and I've got 3 stock tanks that I cut the bottoms out of, and I use them to put stuff in too. You cut the bottoms out so that you get good drainage. Then you just set a couple bricks underneath the edges of them and fill them with dirt and put your stuff in them. Just that simple. I use good fertilizer when I put my stuff in the ground. But this particular one, I've already taken the weeds out of. See, all these are going to have to be weeded. Look at this mess over here. Every one of these has to have all the weeds and stuff pulled out of it, and the soil turned up and aired out good. And then I put the fertilizer to it and mix that in the soil good, and I put my plants in there and just get them watered in and whatever else they need. Now my tomatoes will need a little bit of lime added to it, and I've got my lime ready to rock and roll. But yeah, I've got a mess of these, and they just go around the edge of my yard. You'll see more of them down there, and they go around over there, and then there's more of them over there on that side, and then they go down the other side of the yard and around the front of the house, or up to the front of the house, and then they come back up the fence on the other side. So yes, I've got a lot of work cut out for me. But I wanted you to see what my fabric pots look like, because I talk about these on the show, and I wanted you to get a bird's eye view here of what I'm doing. And I've got tomato plants that I've got to get in the ground here pretty quick, because they're already starting to bloom, for crying out loud. I don't have maters for anybody in town. So with that being said, I'll cut her off right here, and you'll see me back in just a few seconds. Okay, we're back. I've cleaned out these tubs, a bunch of them, not all of them, but I got about 14 of them cleaned up. And we'll start planting some tomatoes here. And the way I'm going to do this, now I know there's some of you out there that say, Lord have mercy, what's she thinking? But this is the way I've always done it, and they bear good fruit. They've always done extremely well for me. Your mileage may vary, so you do it your way, but I'll show you my way. If your way don't work, you might want to try this. These fabric pots, I'm going to elaborate on these a little bit. They're easier for me personally to work with because I've got bad legs, and I don't gush and go on about it too much with the issues that I have, but I have ligament problems in my legs, and so I don't get around very good. And getting down on my hands and knees is pretty much a no-go. I mean, I can do it if I absolutely have to, but I don't like being laid up for a few days after that trying to heal. So these fabric pots, I can just bring my folding chair out here and sit by the fabric pot and do what I need to do without hurting myself. All right? Fabric pots are good for your plants because they breathe, and the roots get more air. So the plants grow better in the fabric pots. So, you know, that's a kill two birds with one stone as far as I'm concerned with the fabric pots. And I can keep the soil good and worked up. If the soil here in the ground is clay, and it gets hard as a rock, and it's hard to work And you have to add a lot of amenities to it to be able to put a garden out and get things to grow right in it. So I can put good composted dirt in my fabric pots and keep it good and loose. I mean, look at this. No, there's nothing hard about that at all. Some roots mixed up in it from weeds and stuff once in a while, but those all compost right in, and it's very easy to work with. Now, I've already added my fertilizer to this and worked it into the ground, and I put 2 tomatoes to the 100-gallon fabric pot. Now, a lot of people say, oh, Lord, you're putting too many in there. They've always worked out very well for me. They don't seem to get overcrowded. They root very well. These pots are pretty deep, and there's plenty of dirt in there for them. You just keep them watered. You don't want the soil muddy, but you want it damp. And so after I get them put in here and get the cages on them, then I will get some water put to them. Tomorrow I'll probably come through and sprinkle some lime on the top of the dirt there so that it can work into soil tomorrow night when it rains, and they'll get a good start that way. Then I have some other things that I add throughout the year. There's liquid that you mix with water and you sprinkle on them when they have blooms, and these are going to be needing it within a week because they're already starting to bloom. But you put that on them and it keeps them from getting the root rot. So I put that on them, and you add that. I think it's like every 10 days you have to add that, so it doesn't work you to death to do it. But I'll show you how I plant these. Now, I'll try to get the camera set up over here so that you get a good view of the garden, or of the pot, and hopefully you can see what I'm going to be doing here with this, because it's hard to get a good view on this camera in the daylight out here. But I've taken the tomato plant out of the pot that I had it in. This is Big Beef by Bonnie, and then you just loosen the dirt. You don't break it all up, you just loosen the dirt around the roots, because you're not trying to damage the roots in any way. You just want to get a little bit of air in there to the roots so that they can fan out some when they get down in here. Then I dig my hole out real good, and I anchor it in, and then I just pack my dirt around it firmly. You don't, I mean, you're not hard packing it, but you want it firm, because if you leave a lot of air pockets down in there, it'll rot the roots. Then once I get the plant in the ground, I take my tomato cage and I open the legs up on it some, and I'm going to ease it right down over the top of my tomato and push those legs down into the ground, and even push a little more dirt up around them there. Now, there we go. You can see a little bit better about how I did this. Put that tomato right in there. And I'm going to put another one right over here. I got another little hole dug, and so we'll stick another in. And I'll try to get this camera anchored over here again so you can maybe see what I'm doing. I don't know if that's Lord. Okay, it's right there. There we go. Now, got this one out, and we're going to loosen the dirt on the roots a little bit. It's like kind of a, you know, cat claw kind of thing, you know, just working your fingers in around them roots some to loosen them. Now, dig my hole out a little bit more, and push my plant down in there, and pull the dirt up on my loose soil there that I pushed back right around it. Then I'm going to get me another cage here. And I'm very sorry that I dropped you. My loose soil is not holding my camera steady, is it? Let's see if I can plant you again. There we go. Now, I've got another tomato cage. You can't see it from where you're at, but I'm loosening my legs up here on it. to give it a good stand around that plant. Now, when I was on the farm, we never used tomato cages. Mom didn't believe in them. She says, Lord, there ain't no sense in that. And we didn't pull the suckers off the tomato plants either. I've already gone through these and pulled the suckers out of them. The suckers will stop your tomatoes from producing as much. See, here's one right here. I'm going to get the camera over here where you can see there's a little sucker right in there. And the suckers come right in, and you just pull them out just like that. There's another one right there that I missed. See? So that's how simple that is. And you just push that, anchor that down in there. Some vines still up around here on the top of it that I didn't get off. But there you go. 2 nice tomato plants that's already got blooms on them, ready to rock and roll. And I got a whole slew more of them that I got to put in here. But this shows you how that I put my tomato plants in the ground and get them going and raise them in fabric pots. And these tomato plants here, they should put out about 90 pounds a piece of tomatoes this season. So I will be putting up tomatoes this summer for my winter soups and stews and sauces and stuff, and not have to go to the store and buy a bunch of it. I see another sucker right down in there. I'll get that pulled off of there while I'm sitting here handy. But don't the tomato plants look pretty? I've got some better bush tomatoes too that I'm going to be putting out. So there'll be 2 different varieties that I'm going to be putting in the garden here. And they're looking mighty fine. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please check out all my links down there in the description of the video. My Etsy store and Patreon and the Twitch channel that I do 3 shows a week. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, and I do a live stream here on YouTube on Monday nights at 8 o'clock. So hope to see you there. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them for you. We'll see y'all later. You have a good day. Remember, Brenda's crafty. Be like Brenda.